My son-in-law forgot his phone at my house. When it buzzed, I glanced at the screen and froze. A photo of Dorothy, my wife, dead for 3 years, smiling in a hotel room I'd never seen. The message below read, "Missing you terribly, my love. Can't wait for tonight." But Dorothy was buried in Portland soil. So who was sending these messages? And why did my son-in-law have dozens more just like it? I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how dark it became, no matter who I had to expose. I made a promise right then I would uncover the truth, protect my family, and make whoever did this answer for their crimes. Have you ever seen something on someone's phone that made your blood run cold? Tell me in the comments what you did next. Did you ignore it? Or did you follow your instincts? I need to know I'm not the only one. Scott's phone buzzed on my kitchen counter. The screen lit up, and I saw something that made my blood freeze, a photo of my wife dead, 3 years now, smiling in a way I'd never seen before. I'd been pouring my second cup of Stumptown coffee when the vibration rattled the granite countertop. Scott had stopped by earlier that morning, something about checking the furnace before the real cold hit Portland, and must have left it behind when he rushed off to a job site. Through the kitchen window, I could see Dorothy's garden, the one she'd spent 20 years cultivating, now reduced to bare rose canes and dormant perennials waiting for spring. Mount Hood sat low on the horizon, its peak catching the October light. My hand shook as I reached for the phone. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was going to call Scott, let him know he'd left it. But when I picked it up, the screen was still glowing, and Dorothy's face stared back at me. Not just any photo. This one showed her laughing head thrown back, wearing a crimson blouse I'd never bought her. She looked younger somehow. Happier. The kind of happy I thought she only had with me. Below the image, a text message. "Missing you like crazy, my love. Can't wait for tonight." My chest tightened. I fumbled for my reading glasses on the windowsill, nearly knocked them to the floor. This couldn't be real. Dorothy died 3 years ago in our bedroom upstairs, sudden heart failure, the doctor said. I'd held her hand as the paramedics worked on her. I'd picked out her casket. I'd stood at her grave in Willamette National Cemetery, while Father Patrick spoke about eternal rest. But here she was, on my son-in-law's phone. I scrolled up with trembling fingers. Dozens of messages. Months of them. "You make me feel alive again. Last night was perfect. When can we meet?" The contact name was just a letter M. More photos loaded as I swiped. Dorothy at a restaurant I didn't recognize, candlelight warming her face. Dorothy in a hotel room with cream-colored walls and abstract art I'd never seen. Dorothy holding a glass of red wine, her eyes reflecting something I couldn't name. In every single image, she wore clothes from a wardrobe I'd never known existed, stood in places we'd never visited together. My mind raced through possibilities, each one more impossible than the last. Someone was using my dead wife's photos. Some sick catfishing scheme. But why would these pictures be on Scott's phone? Why would my daughter, Madison's husband, have intimate messages from someone pretending to be Dorothy? Or, and this thought landed like a blow to my gut, what if they weren't pretending? What if my wife had lived a life I never knew about? I forced myself to breathe, to think. Dorothy and I had been married 42 years. High school sweethearts in Eugene, married at 23, built our life in this Laurelhurst Craftsman when Madison was still in diapers. Dorothy taught second grade at Glencoe Elementary for 30 years. She grew dahlias that won ribbons at the county fair. She made blackberry cobbler every August with berries from our backyard. She was the most honest person I'd ever known. Wasn't she? I scrolled back further, my reading glasses slipping down my nose. 6 months before Dorothy died, the messages started. Cautious at first. "You have a beautiful smile." Then bolder. "I can't stop thinking about you." By the time of her death, they were planning meetings. Specific times. Hotels with addresses in downtown Portland. The October morning that had seemed so peaceful 20 minutes ago now felt like I was moving underwater. Everything looked the same. Dorothy's collection of vintage Pyrex on the open shelves, her handwritten recipe cards in the drawer by the stove, the African violet she'd kept alive for 15 years on the windowsill, but nothing made sense anymore. I thought back to those final months. Dorothy had been tired, always tired. Doctor's appointments, she said, were routine checkups. Afternoons when she'd come home with shopping bags, but no purchases to show. Just browsing, she'd say, kissing my cheek, before heading upstairs to shower. I'd believed every word. Why wouldn't I? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The screen had dimmed, but I could still see Dorothy's face in that crimson blouse, laughing at something or someone beyond the camera's frame. Someone who made her look that way. Someone who wasn't me. Then I heard it. The unmistakable rumble of Scott's truck in the driveway. My heart slammed against my ribs. 20 minutes. That's all it had been. 20 minutes that had ripped apart everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my family. I set the phone down exactly where Scott had left it, screen dark, now innocent looking. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stepped back from the counter. Through the window, I saw his truck door swing open. Someone was using my dead wife's face to send messages. Intimate messages. Messages that spoke of nights together, of longing, of secrets. And those messages were in my son-in-law's phone. I didn't know who M was. I didn't know what any of this meant. But as I heard Scott's footsteps on the porch, one question burned through my mind like acid. Who was Dorothy really texting? And why did my son-in-law have these messages? Scott's footsteps on the porch sounded heavier than usual. When he knocked, there was an urgency I'd never heard before. "Come in," I called, forcing my voice to sound normal. My hands were still shaking, so I gripped the edge of the counter to steady them. The door swung open. Scott stood in the doorway, his work jacket unzipped, despite the October chill sweat glistening on his forehead. For a man whose job required calm under pressure, negotiating contracts, managing crews, juggling property maintenance jobs, he looked rattled. "Hey, Dad." The name he'd used for 12 years sounded strained. His eyes swept the kitchen landing immediately on the phone he'd left behind. "Thanks for not calling." I realized halfway to the Benson job site. "No problem," I said, stepping back to give him space. 35 years teaching high school English had trained me to read body language to recognize the subtle signs when someone was lying. Scott kept checking his jacket pockets, a nervous habit I'd never seen before. He crossed the kitchen in 3 quick strides and grabbed the phone. Relief flashed across his face, followed by something darker. Fear or guilt. "Big contract presentation today," he said, thumbing the screen. "Can't afford to lose track of this thing." I poured myself more coffee, buying time. On a Saturday, his jaw tightened briefly. Client requested a weekend meeting. Property management never really stops. That much was true. Scott ran Sullivan Property Services, named after Madison, not me, and he'd grown it from nothing into a solid operation. Commercial buildings, residential repairs, seasonal maintenance, dozens of properties across Portland, access to cabins. I pushed the thought aside and tried another angle. Justin's science fair project is due Monday. Madison said he's been stressed. "Yeah, the solar system thing." Scott was already backing toward the door phone, clutched tight. "I'll help him tomorrow. Right now I've got to run." "Stay for coffee," I said, testing him. 5 minutes won't matter. Can't. He reached for the doorknob. "This client's a big one. Japanese investors. They're only in town for the weekend." It was a good lie, specific, rehearsed. The kind people practiced, but his hand shook as he turned the knob. "Good luck," I said. He nodded once and was gone. Through the window, I watched him nearly jog to his truck. Shoulders hunched, the engine roared, and he pulled away too fast, tires squealing as he turned onto 39th Avenue. I stood there beside Dorothy's African violet, trying to remember when I'd first noticed Scott changing. The dark circles under his eyes were recent 2 months, maybe. Madison had mentioned it casually, blaming work stress. I'd believed her. The constant phone checking at family dinners had started around the same time. He'd replaced his phone in July, said the old one was failing. Upgraded to a newer model with better security, better encryption. I hadn't questioned it. Then, there were the early exits from our Sunday gatherings. For years, Scott had been the last to leave, helping me clean up, talking football while loading the dishwasher. Lately, there were excuses, emergency service calls, supplier meetings, last-minute jobs. Always something urgent pulling him away. I'd chalked it up to business growth. Sullivan Property Services was expanding. Madison had even joked, your son-in-law's becoming a workaholic dad. Must be where Justin gets his perfectionism. Now those memories felt darker. I thought back to Dorothy's illness. Those last 6 months when exhaustion overtook her, when doctor visits multiplied, when she grew fragile in ways that terrified me. Scott had been there. He drove her to appointments when I couldn't, installed grab bars in our bathroom without being asked, printed articles about cardiac care, sat with me in the hospital waiting room that final terrible morning. He'd been perfect. The son I never had. The man I welcomed into our family without hesitation when he and Madison announced their engagement 16 years ago. How could that man be connected to messages on a phone? Messages using my dead wife's face, unless he wasn't. Unless he was just another victim. But then why the sweat? Why the shaking hands? Why the rushed exit and the lie about a Saturday meeting? I walked to the window and looked out at Dorothy's garden. The rose bushes she'd tended for decades stood bare against the fence. In spring, they'd bloom again, pink peace roses, deep red Mr. Lincoln's, the pale yellow Julia Child. She planted the year before she died. Life moved forward, seasons turned, gardens grew back. But some things once dead stayed dead. I pulled out my own phone, older, simpler, and scrolled through photos until I found the last picture of Dorothy. Our anniversary dinner at Jake's Famous Crawfish 6 months before she passed. She was smiling, but her eyes held something I hadn't noticed then. Distance, sadness. Or was I only seeing that now? Scott had messages on his phone. Messages from someone using Dorothy's photos, Dorothy's smile, Dorothy's identity. Messages about meetings and longing and nights together. As his truck disappeared down the street, one question burned through everything else. Was my son-in-law being deceived, or was he the one behind it? Wednesday morning, Madison showed up at my door at 8 o'clock. One look at my daughter's face, dark circles under her eyes, hair uncombed, hands trembling as she gripped her purse, and I knew something terrible had happened. Come in, sweetheart. I stepped aside, watching her move past me like she was sleepwalking. This wasn't the Madison I knew. My daughter was a nurse at Providence, someone who dealt with blood and trauma and crisis every day with calm efficiency. She kept her hair in a neat bun, her scrubs pressed, her life organized down to the minute. The woman who collapsed onto my couch looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad, we need to talk about Scott. Her voice cracked. Something's been wrong for months now. I can't pretend anymore. I sat down across from her, my heart already pounding. 4 days since I'd seen those messages on Scott's phone. 4 days of watching my son-in-law from a distance, cataloging every nervous gesture, every quick exit, every lie. Tell me, I said. The words tumbled out of her. Scott had been secretive with his phone for months, taking it into the bathroom, sleeping with it under his pillow, angling the screen away whenever she came near. He left the house at 6 in the morning and didn't return until 11 at night. Overtime contracts, he'd say. Big commercial jobs that needed evening supervision. But last week, Madison had called his business partner. Scott had left the job site at 3 o'clock. Where was he for 8 hours then? Her hands twisted in her lap. When I asked him, he got so angry, told me I was being paranoid, that I was acting crazy. There was more. Late-night phone calls taken outside in his truck, even in the rain. Money disappearing from their joint account, $2, $3, sometimes $400 at a time. Business expenses, he'd claimed, but there were never any receipts. The way he looks at me now. Madison's voice dropped to a whisper. Like I'm the enemy instead of his wife. I reached across the coffee table and took her hand. It was ice cold. My mind raced with what I knew, what I'd seen, what I couldn't yet tell her. The messages on Scott's phone using Dorothy's photos, the intimate words, the planning of secret meetings. Did Madison need to know, should I tell her that her husband might be involved in something even darker than an affair? Not yet, not without more proof. If your instincts are right, I said carefully, then we need to find out what's happening. But we need to be smart about it. What do I do? The hope in her voice nearly broke me. Document everything. Times, behaviors, anything unusual. But don't confront him. Don't let him know you're suspicious. Can you do that? She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I can. The doorbell rang. We both froze. Madison glanced toward the front door, then back at me with a question in her eyes. Through the window, I could see a dark sedan in my driveway. Not Scott's truck. A woman in a black pantsuit stood on my porch, a badge clipped to her belt. Portland Police. I opened the door to find a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper expression. Mr. Elliot Sullivan. Yes. I'm Detective Lisa Morgan, Portland PD. She showed me her badge. I need to ask you some questions about your wife's death. May I come in? My mouth went dry. My wife died 3 years ago. Heart failure. That's what we're here to discuss. Her gaze moved past me to Madison on the couch. Is this your daughter? Yes, Madison. Good. I'll need to speak with both of you. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, pulling a notebook from her jacket. We've received information suggesting Dorothy Sullivan's death wasn't from natural causes. The room tilted. Madison made a small sound behind me. What information? I managed. Detective Morgan settled into the armchair. Her posture relaxed, but her eyes missing nothing. Let's start with something simple. Mr. Sullivan, were you aware of a life insurance policy on your wife? $750,000 purchased 6 months before her death. The number hit me like a physical blow. No, that's no. Dorothy handled our bills when she was sick. I never saw. The payments came from your joint account. Morgan continued flipping through her notes. Listed as medical expenses. Very easy to miss if you weren't looking closely. Madison was on her feet now, moving to stand beside me. Who was the beneficiary? Oh, initially your father. Morgan's gaze shifted between us. But 2 months after Dorothy's death, it was changed. The entire amount now goes to something called the Dorothy Memorial Trust. My chest constricted. I never heard of any trust. The trustee is listed as Scott Brennan, your son-in-law. Madison's hand found my arm, gripping tight enough to hurt. There's more, Morgan said, and something in her tone made me brace for impact. We received an anonymous tip 3 days ago, very detailed. The tipster claims Dorothy Sullivan was having an affair in the months before her death. The word affair hung in the air like smoke. That's impossible, I said. Dorothy would never, with Scott Brennan. Madison's fingers dug into my arm. I heard her breath catch, heard the small, wounded sound she made, but I couldn't look at her. Couldn't take my eyes off the detective who was systematically destroying everything I thought I knew about my life. The tip included specifics, Morgan continued. Meeting times, locations, a cabin somewhere in the Columbia River Gorge. Messages exchanged between them. The tipster believes you discovered the affair, Mr. Sullivan, and killed your wife in a jealous rage. That's insane. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. I loved Dorothy. I would never. Did you know about the affair? There was no affair. Shitsunonki. Did you know about the life insurance policy? No. Did you know your son-in-law was the trustee of a fund worth $750,000 created in your dead wife's name? No. Detective Morgan closed her notebook and stood. Right now, Mr. Sullivan, you're our primary suspect. Someone out there believes you're a murderer, and they've provided us with enough details to warrant a full investigation. She pulled out a business card and set it on the coffee table. Don't leave Portland. I'll be back with more questions. She left the same way she'd arrived, quick, efficient, devastating. The door clicked shut. Madison and I sat in stunned silence, her hand still gripping my arm, both of us trying to process what had just happened. An hour ago, I'd been trying to uncover the truth about mysterious messages on a phone. Now I was a murder suspect. My son-in-law was at the center of a $750,000 insurance fraud. And someone out there, someone who knew details about Dorothy, about Scott, about all of us, wanted me to take the fall for my own wife's death. After Detective Morgan left, my phone rang before I could process what had just happened. Benjamin Walsh, our family attorney for 20 years. Elliot, I just heard from Detective Morgan. I'm coming over right now. We'll fight this together. 30 minutes later, Walsh stood in my living room, distinguished silver hair, warm smile, expensive navy suit, leather briefcase in hand. The same man who'd handled Dorothy's mother's estate, drafted our wills, guided us through every legal question we'd ever had. Uncle Ben. Madison stood to hug him, and I saw relief flood her face. She'd known Walsh since she was 15. He'd given her legal advice when she bought her first house, reviewed her employment contracts at Providence. To her, he was family. Walsh embraced her, then turned to me with an expression of controlled fury. This is outrageous. Elliot, you could never have hurt Dorothy. Never. He sat down, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything, Detective Morgan said. I walked him through it. The life insurance policy I'd never known about. The Dorothy Memorial Trust with Scott as trustee. The anonymous tip claiming Dorothy had been having an affair with our son-in-law. Walsh's face darkened with each detail. This anonymous source extremely suspicious. Someone setting you up, Elliot. The question is who and why. Dad didn't know about any of this. Madison said, her voice stronger now that Walsh was here. None of us did. Of course not. Walsh made notes on his pad. That's exactly what we'll prove. He looked up at me, his expression thoughtful. Now that you mention it, something's been bothering me. Last year, Scott asked me about estate planning. Wanted to know about life insurance policies, how beneficiary designations work. My chest tightened. When was this? Late spring, I think. April or May. Walsh tapped his pen against the pad. At the time, I assumed he was thinking about his own family, making sure Madison and Justin were protected. But now, he shook his head. This is deeply troubling. Madison leaned forward. What are you thinking, Uncle Ben? I'm thinking someone planned this very carefully. Walsh's voice was measured, professional. The timing of the insurance purchase, the trust created after Dorothy's death, the anonymous tip that conveniently points away from the real perpetrator. He looked at me. Someone wants you to take the fall, Elliot. And they've been building this framework for years. The room felt smaller suddenly. What do we do? I'll handle the legal defense work with Detective Morgan, protect your rights, make sure they follow proper procedure. Walsh stood pacing now. But you two need to gather evidence. We need to prove 3 things. First, you had no knowledge of the insurance policy. Second, this alleged affair is fabricated. Third, someone else orchestrated this entire scheme. He turned to face us. I recommend we investigate 3 areas. Dorothy's medical records, what actually caused her death. The insurance documentation, who initiated the policy, who signed the paperwork, and pharmacy records, what medications was she taking in those final months. I can get her medical records, Madison said. I work at Providence. I know people in records. Good. Walsh made another note. Elliot, do you remember which pharmacy Dorothy used? Thompson's on Hawthorne, same one for 30 years. Mrs. Henderson still running it? I nodded. Gloria Henderson had filled Dorothy's prescriptions since we moved to Laurelhurst. She'd sent flowers to the funeral. Walsh closed his briefcase. I'll start digging into the trust documents, see who else has access. Meanwhile, you two focus on the evidence trail. Dorothy's final month's appointments, medications, anything unusual. What about your fee? I asked. The question felt crass, but I had to know. Legal defense could cost tens of thousands. Walsh waved his hand. Don't insult me, Elliot. We're family. I'm not charging you a cent for this. He gripped my shoulder. We've been friends for 2 decades. I'm not letting some conspiracy destroy you. Relief washed over me. Walsh had saved us from probate nightmares when Dorothy's mother died. He'd navigated complex real estate issues when Madison bought her house. He'd been at Dorothy's funeral, one of the first to arrive, one of the last to leave. Thank you, I managed. I don't know what we'd do without you. You'll never have to find out. Walsh picked up his briefcase. Let's meet again Friday evening. Compare notes, see what we've learned. In the meantime, be careful. Don't confront Scott. Don't tell anyone we're investigating. If someone's gone to this much trouble to frame you, they're dangerous. Madison walked him to the door. I heard them talking in low voices, Walsh reassuring her, promising everything would be okay. When she came back, she threw her arms around me. Thank God we have Uncle Ben, Dad. I don't know what we'd do without him. Neither do I, sweetheart. Through the window, I watched Walsh's Mercedes pull away. A good man. A trusted friend. Someone who'd been part of our lives for 20 years. Who'd seen Madison grow up, who'd mourned Dorothy's death alongside us. I felt grateful for old friends who showed up when you needed them most. Thursday and Friday became a blur of discoveries that demolished everything I thought I knew about my wife's death. At Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center, Thursday morning, Andrew Richardson's face went pale as he reviewed Dorothy's medical records. I need to see these files, Madison had said, using her nurse credentials to request access. Richardson had been Dorothy's primary physician for the final 18 months, a kind man in his late 40s, who'd seemed genuinely devastated at her funeral. Now he sat across from us in a small consultation room, medical charts spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. The symptoms began approximately 18 months before her death. Richardson said, his finger tracing the timeline. Nausea, visual disturbances, irregular heartbeat, extreme fatigue. At the time, we attributed everything to progressive heart failure. But Madison leaned forward, her nurse's training taking over. Richardson removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. Mr. Sullivan, I need you to understand. We did everything by the book. Every test, every protocol. But looking at this pattern now with what Detective Morgan told me. He paused. Your wife's symptoms are actually more consistent with digitalis poisoning than natural heart disease. The word poisoning hung in the air like smoke. Digitalis is extracted from foxglove plants, he continued. We use it medically in controlled doses for heart conditions, but in the wrong amounts over time, it's extremely toxic. Small doses administered over months would perfectly mimic heart failure. The nausea, the vision problems, the arrhythmia, all classic signs we misread as disease progression. My hands gripped the edge of the table. Someone was poisoning her for 18 months. If Detective Morgan's theory is correct, yes. Gradually. Calculated. Richardson's voice was heavy with professional guilt. Whoever did this had pharmaceutical knowledge. They knew exactly how to make it look natural. Madison's medical training kicked in. Digitalis is in some herbal supplements, heart tonics, natural remedies marketed as safe. Memory hit me like a physical blow. Scott bringing Dorothy special teas during her illness. Natural heart support, he'd called them. Supplements he'd researched online, ordered from specialty shops. I'd been grateful for his concern. Grateful he was taking care of her when I had to work. Where would someone get digitalis? I asked. Foxglove grows wild in Oregon, Richardson said quietly. Anyone with basic knowledge could extract it, or purchase it through herbal supplement channels, no prescription required. Friday afternoon found us at Cascade Insurance downtown, sitting across from Charles Newman, a bureaucratic man in his late 50s, who nevertheless seemed genuinely troubled by our questions. The Sullivan policy has been flagged in our system, he said, pulling up files on his computer. After Detective Morgan's call, I reviewed everything personally. He turned the screen toward us. There it was, a $750,000 whole life policy on Dorothy Sullivan. Online application filed 6 months before Mrs. Sullivan's death. Newman clicked through screens. Monthly premiums of $542 paid from your joint checking account. He glanced at me. Listed as medical expenses in the transaction notes. I thought back to those months. Dorothy had handled the bills when she got sick. Said it gave her something to focus on, made her feel useful. I'd never questioned the amounts. Medical costs were high, doctor visits, prescriptions, tests. What was a few hundred more? Or the signature on the application, Madison said. Is it verified? Newman hesitated. Digital signature. We have protocols, but... He trailed off. It passed our initial screening. What about the beneficiary on? I asked. Newman pulled up another screen. Originally listed as Elliot Sullivan. Changed 8 weeks after Mrs. Sullivan's death to the Dorothy Memorial Trust. Who filed the change? Attorney of record Benjamin Walsh, Walsh and Associates. The name hit me like cold water. I felt Madison's hand find mine under the table. Walsh, our family attorney. The man who'd sat in my living room 2 days ago promising to help clear my name. The man I'd trusted for 20 years. But Walsh was our lawyer. Of course he'd set up the trust. That's what attorneys did, handle estates, manage funds. It made sense, didn't it? Tell me about the trust structure. Madison said, her voice steady despite the tension I could feel in her grip. Newman scrolled through documents. Dorothy Memorial Trust established 9 weeks after Mrs. Sullivan's death. Primary trustee, Scott Brennan. He has full discretionary power over fund distribution. No oversight board, no reporting requirements. He looked up. Once the insurance company approved the claim, the money transferred directly to the trust account. Mr. Brennan has complete control. $750,000. No oversight, no accountability. Who else has access? I asked. Just Mr. Brennan, according to these documents. Newman frowned at his screen. Though there's a notation here about a backup trustee in case of Mr. Brennan's incapacity or death. Benjamin Walsh. My mouth went dry. Walsh again. But that was normal for estate planning, wasn't it? Backup trustees, contingency plans. Responsible legal work. So why did my stomach twist every time I heard his name? We thanked Newman and left as the Friday evening rush began filling Portland's streets. Madison and I sat in her car in the parking garage, neither of us speaking for a long moment. Dad, her voice was small. Dr. Richardson said whoever poisoned Mom needed pharmaceutical knowledge. I know. And the insurance policy was filed online, probably using forged signatures. I know. And Scott controls all the money with Walsh as backup. I looked at her. My daughter, who'd been a nurse for 12 years, who understood medicine and death and the ways people could hurt each other. What are you thinking? Scott brought Mom those supplements. The tea, the heart tonics. He was always researching natural remedies online. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. But he couldn't have done all this alone. The insurance fraud, the trust, the whole framework that took legal expertise. Walsh's face flashed through my mind. His warm smile, his promises to help, his convenient timing calling minutes after Detective Morgan left. But no, Walsh had been our friend for 20 years. He'd mourned Dorothy. He'd helped us through her mother's estate. He was Uncle Ben to Madison. "We don't have proof," I said finally. "Just suspicions." Then we keep investigating." Madison started the car. "Tomorrow we talk to Mrs. Henderson at the pharmacy, see what medications Mom was actually taking." As we drove home through Friday evening traffic, I tried to organize what we'd learned. Dorothy poisoned with digitalis over 18 months. Insurance policy created fraudulently 6 months before her death. Money laundered through a trust controlled by Scott, established by Walsh. But we still didn't know who M was in Scott's phone. Didn't know the full scope of the conspiracy. The answer would come tomorrow from a pharmacist with an excellent memory. Saturday morning brought us to Thompson's Pharmacy in Selwood, a charming neighborhood where Dorothy had shopped for 30 years. Muses. Gloria Henderson's remarkable memory would unlock the final piece of the poisoning puzzle and trigger a threat that changed everything. The pharmacy still had that old-fashioned feel, wooden shelves, a soda fountain counter from the 1950s, the smell of compounded medications mixing with coffee from the cafe next door. Mrs. Henderson emerged from behind the prescription counter when she saw us, her face lighting up with recognition. "Elliot Sullivan. Madison." She came around to embrace us both. "I still think about your mother every day, sweetheart. Such a lovely woman." We settled in a corner booth away from other Saturday shoppers. Miss Henderson had brought Dorothy's purchase records, 30 years of prescriptions and over-the-counter medications, all meticulously documented. "Hachum. Dorothy bought her cardiac medications here," she said, running her finger down the printout. "Legitimate prescriptions from Dr. Richardson, but she also purchased herbal supplements regularly." My chest tightened. "What kind of supplements?" "Heart tonics mostly, natural remedies." Mrs. Henderson pulled reading glasses from her pocket. She specifically requested formulations containing foxglove extract. Madison leaned forward. "Digitalis." "Exactly." Mrs. Henderson's expression darkened. I warned her. Foxglove is powerful medicine when properly dosed, but extremely dangerous otherwise. I told her she needed to discuss it with Dr. Richardson. "What did she say?" I asked. "That her son-in-law was helping manage her medications, that he had a business partner who worked in pharmaceutical research." Mrs. Henderson looked at me directly. "She trusted him, Elliot. Said Scott knew what he was doing, that his partner was an expert." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Scott had someone with pharmaceutical expertise, someone who knew exactly how to poison Dorothy, slowly, systematically, making it look like natural heart failure. Madison's hand found mine across the table. "Dad, Scott has a business partner. I'd forgotten she handles his commercial accounts, the big corporate contracts. Who? But I already knew. The contact in Scott's phone. M. Monica Garrett." Madison's voice was barely a whisper. "She works in pharmaceutical research, specializes in cardiac medications." Mrs. Henderson pulled out purchase receipts, laid them in chronological order. The herbal foxglove supplements were bought every 2 to 3 weeks. The doses increased gradually over time. She pointed to the final entry. "Last purchase was 2 weeks before Dorothy died." I stared at the timeline. 18 months of systematic poisoning disguised as natural heart supplements. Scott Brennan with financial motive and access. Monica Garrett with pharmaceutical knowledge and expertise. $750,000 waiting at the end. "May I have copies of these records?" I asked. Mrs. Henderson had them ready. "I made them when Detective Morgan called." "I'm so sorry, Elliot. If I'd known, you tried to warn her." I folded the papers carefully. Thank you, Gloria. We left Thompson's at 12:03, the Saturday afternoon sun bright and warm in a way that felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. My wife had been murdered by our son-in-law and his pharmaceutical researcher partner, and I'd been too blind to see it. We take this to Detective Morgan first thing Monday, Madison said as we reached her car. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. Stop digging into the past, or your grandson's future ends. You have until Monday. Below it, a photo. Justin walking out of Riverside Middle School, backpack slung over one shoulder, completely unaware someone was photographing him. The timestamp read, today, 8:47 a.m., this morning. While we'd been at the pharmacy, someone had been watching my 12-year-old grandson. Dad. Madison saw my face. What is it? I showed her the phone. Watched the color drain from her face. Watched terror replace the grief and anger we'd been carrying for days. She called Justin immediately. 3 rings, 4. Finally, Mom, what's wrong? Where are you right now? Whoa, at Tyler's house. Remember, his mom's making lunch. Confusion in his voice. Why? Stay there. Don't leave. I'm coming to get you right now. Madison was already moving toward her car keys in hand. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me. Mom, you're scaring me. Just do it, baby, please. She was in the car engine running before I could say anything. Through the window. Meet me at my house. We need to figure out what to do. I stood in that pharmacy parking lot staring at the photo of my grandson. 12 years old. Same age Madison had been when Dorothy and I bought the house in Laurelhurst. Same innocence, same trust in the world being a safe place. They'd killed Dorothy. Poisoned her slowly over 18 months, made it look like natural causes, stolen $750,000. And when I'd started asking questions, when we'd gotten close to the truth, they'd threatened a child. My grandson. Dorothy had died protecting Madison and Justin. I understood that now. Whatever pressure they'd put on her, whatever threats they'd made to force her to sign insurance papers, to take the poisoned supplements, she'd done it to keep her family safe. Now someone was threatening him again. They thought they were warning off a confused old man, a grieving widower who'd stumble and back down when his family was threatened. They didn't realize they'd just given a father a reason to burn their entire conspiracy to the ground. Saturday evening found me alone in my house, standing outside Dorothy's office door. I hadn't entered this room since the funeral 3 years ago. Madison had offered to help clean it out, but I'd always found excuses. Too painful, too soon, maybe next month. Now I understood why I'd been avoiding it. Some part of me had known Dorothy was too smart, too careful to leave without answers. The door opened with a soft creak. Everything remained exactly as she'd left it. Her reading glasses on the desk, a half-finished crossword puzzle from 3 years ago, her collection of teaching awards on the wall. The room still smelled faintly of her lavender hand lotion. I started with the desk drawers. Old lesson plans from her teaching days at Glencoe Elementary. Thank you cards from students' photographs of Madison at various ages. The filing cabinet held tax returns, medical bills, warranties for appliances we'd long since replaced. Then I moved to the bookshelf. Dorothy had been an English teacher for 30 years. She'd accumulated hundreds of books, many with her handwritten notes in the margins. I ran my fingers along the spines, remembering how she'd quote passages at dinner, how she'd made literature come alive for her second graders. My hand stopped on To Kill a Mockingbird, her favorite. She'd taught it every year, called it the most important book ever written about justice and standing up for what's right. I pulled it from the shelf and something fell out. A journal, leather-bound, small enough to fit in a purse. Dorothy's handwriting on the first page, private. For Elliot only. My hands shook as I opened it. The entries began 6 months before her passing and continued almost until the end. As I read, Dorothy's voice came alive on those pages, her intelligence, her fear, her impossible courage. She'd started suspecting something was wrong when her symptoms began matching what she remembered about digitalis toxicity from her reading. She'd found supplements hidden in Scott's car foxglove extract tucked away in the glove compartment, and her teacher's instinct told her something wasn't right. But she was terrified she might just be a sick woman becoming paranoid, so she watched and waited, documenting everything. Over the following months, she observed Scott preparing her tea with unusual precision, measuring out supplements, like someone following a careful formula. She found emails on his laptop communications with Monica Garrett, discussing timelines and inheritance structures and trust frameworks. Then, 3 months before she passed, everything became horrifyingly clear. Scott had brought Monica to our house while I was at book club. Dorothy described Monica as younger than expected, with cold eyes working in pharmaceutical research. They'd forced Dorothy to sign papers insurance beneficiary changes. Scott had made it clear that if she didn't cooperate, Madison and Justin would be put in serious danger. Dorothy wrote that she'd signed with shaking hands because she had no choice. They were threatening our daughter and grandson. She was losing strength anyway, she reasoned. Better her than them. In her final entries, Dorothy wrote about how weak she'd become, how she'd made the choice to stay silent rather than risk harm coming to Madison and Justin. She let Dr. Richardson believe it was natural heart failure because speaking up would put our family in danger. She'd accepted her fate, hoping that someday I might figure it out and get justice for her. But in that moment, keeping our family safe was all that mattered to her. Then I reached her last entry, written just 2 weeks before she passed. My vision blurred with tears as I read her final words to me. She apologized for not being able to tell me the truth, explaining she'd been too afraid of what Scott would do to Madison and Justin. She made me promise to protect them at all costs and to seek justice for what had been done to her. But she also, and she emphasized, this didn't want me to let grief destroy my life. She wanted me to live to plant the roses we'd talked about, to remember her in the garden, but not to live in the past. She told me she'd loved me since we were 17, that I'd given her the most beautiful life, and that I shouldn't waste mine mourning her. She wanted me to fight for our family, and then find joy again. I collapsed into her desk chair, the journal pressed against my chest. Sobs tearing through me. Dorothy had known everything. She'd figured out that Scott was deliberately making her ill, found evidence of his conspiracy with Monica Garrett, understood what was happening to her. And she'd chosen to go quietly rather than risk our daughter and grandson's safety. There had been no affair. The anonymous tip Detective Morgan received was a complete fabrication designed to frame me for something I would have given anything to prevent. Dorothy had been faithful, loving, and impossibly brave, right until her last breath. She'd protected Madison and Justin the only way she could, by sacrificing herself. I don't know how long I sat there reading her words over and over, feeling the weight of her love and her terror and her impossible choice. The woman I'd shared 42 years with had faced this alone, too afraid to tell me, convinced she was saving our family by staying silent. My phone showed 9:47 p.m. Outside, the October darkness had deepened. Dorothy's roses stood bare in the garden, waiting for spring, but someone was still threatening Justin, still acting like Dorothy's sacrifice meant nothing, like they could terrorize a 12-year-old boy and face no consequences. They'd underestimated her love, and they were about to learn they'd underestimated mine. I picked up my phone and called Benjamin Walsh. He answered on the second ring. "Elliot, I was just thinking about you. How's the investigation going? We have Dorothy's journal." I said, my voice steady despite the tears still on my face. "We have proof. Everything she knew, everything Scott and Monica did, it's all documented." That's remarkable." Walsh sounded genuinely shocked. "Where did you find it?" "Not hidden in her favorite book. She knew I'd look there eventually." I stood up, Dorothy's journal in my hand. "It's time to end this, Ben. Monday morning we take everything to Detective Morgan. The journal, Mrs. Henderson's pharmacy, records the insurance documents. All of it. Absolutely." Walsh's voice was warm, supportive. "Bring the journal to my office first thing Monday. I'll review it, make sure we present everything properly to the detective. We want to make certain Scott can't escape justice on a technicality." Thank you, Ben. I don't know what we'd do without you." "That's what family is for, Elliot. Get some rest. Monday we bring justice for Dorothy." I hung up and looked around Dorothy's office one last time. She'd left me the truth. Now it was my job to make sure that truth brought down the people who'd taken her from us. Sunday morning, I woke to my phone ringing at 8:30. I'd barely slept, kept seeing Dorothy's handwriting, her final words, the terrible choice she'd made to protect our family. The journal sat on my nightstand, where I'd placed it after Walsh's call the night before. "Elliot, it's Ben." Walsh's voice was urgent, tight with concern. "Madison called me last night about the threat against Justin. I've been up all night thinking about this. We can't wait until Monday morning to meet at my office. This situation is too dangerous. I'm coming to your house right now." "Ben, what?" "Said that threat gave you until Monday. These people are escalating. Dorothy's journal changes everything, but we need to act immediately." I heard a car door slam in the background. "I'm already on my way. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Have the journal ready." He hung up before I could respond. I made coffee, my hands still unsteady from reading Dorothy's words the night before. Through the kitchen window, the October morning looked deceptively peaceful. Neighbors, walking dogs, kids riding bikes. The kind of normal Sunday that felt like it belonged to a different world than the one I was living in. Walsh arrived at 9:15, parking his Mercedes in my driveway. He was dressed more casually than I'd ever seen him, jeans, a fleece pullover, hiking boots. Not his usual attorney uniform. "Show me the journal," he said the moment I opened the door. No pleasantries, no small talk. His intensity was palpable. I led him to the dining room. Dorothy's journal still lay on the table where I'd left it. Walsh sat down, pulled on his reading glasses, and began to read. I watched his face transform, shock, horror, anger playing across his features. His jaw clenched when he reached the part about Scott and Monica forcing Dorothy to sign the insurance papers. His hands trembled slightly as he turned the pages. "Oh, that monster," he whispered when he finished, looking up at me. Dorothy sacrificed everything. She knew what Scott was doing, and she chose silence to keep Madison and Justin safe. He closed the journal carefully, almost reverently. "This is extraordinary evidence, Elliot, but I've been thinking we need more than this." "What do you mean she documented everything?" "Her words will help convict them, absolutely. But defense attorneys will claim it's the confused writings of a sick woman. We need Scott and Monica to admit what they did. On record. Recorded confession combined with Dorothy's journal, that's unbeatable." Walsh stood and walked to the window, looking out at my backyard. "The trust documents list a cabin in the Columbia River Gorge. Remote property, very private. I reviewed the financial records last night. Scott's been making regular visits there. Monthly, sometimes twice a month. That's where he and Monica have been meeting." He turned back to me, and I saw what looked like fierce determination in his eyes. "Here's what we do. Tomorrow is Monday, the deadline from that threat. You go to that cabin, confront them with what you know, record everything on your phone. That's dangerous." "I'll coordinate with Detective Morgan today," Walsh said firmly. "We'll have officers positioned nearby, full tactical support. But you need to get them talking first. Once we have their confession on tape combined with Dorothy's journal and all the other evidence, this case becomes airtight." He pulled out his phone and texted me GPS coordinates. "The cabin's about an hour east. Here's the critical part. Park your car a quarter-mile away. Approach on foot. Stay hidden. Record through the windows if you have to. Don't go inside. Just get their conversation. Get them to admit what they did to Dorothy." My chest felt tight. "What about Madison and Justin? I'll be with them." Walsh gripped my shoulder. I promise you, Elliot, I will personally ensure no harm comes to your family. I'll stay at Madison's house all day tomorrow. They'll be completely safe. The police will really be there at the cabin. I'll make sure of it. I'll speak with Detective Morgan this afternoon. He looked me directly in the eyes. Elliot, we've been friends for 20 years. I loved Dorothy like family. Let me help you finish this. Let me help you bring justice for what they did to her. The plan made desperate sense. I needed to protect Justin. I needed justice for Dorothy. And Walsh, my trusted friend and attorney, was offering me both. One more thing, Walsh added. Don't tell Madison or Justin where you're going tomorrow. Tell them you're meeting me and Detective Morgan downtown. If they know the real plan, they'll panic. Keep them calm. Keep them safe. It made sense. No reason to terrify my daughter. Walsh left at 10:30, taking his time backing out of the driveway, giving me a reassuring wave through the window. I stood in my doorway watching his Mercedes disappear down the street. Inside, Dorothy's journal waited on the dining room table. Tomorrow morning, I would drive to that cabin. I would confront the people who'd taken Dorothy from us. I would get their confession on record. And then finally, justice would be served. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, I would be facing 3 people at that remote cabin instead of 2. I had no idea that the man who'd just left my house, the man I'd trusted for 2 decades, had spent the night not thinking about how to help me, but finalizing the trap that would either send me to prison or ensure I never came back from that mountain. Walsh had orchestrated everything from the beginning. The anonymous tip to Detective Morgan, the insurance fraud framework, the trust structure, all of it designed to either frame me for Dorothy's passing or eliminate the problem entirely if I got too close to the truth. The trap was set, and I was walking straight into it, grateful for the friendship of the man who'd arranged my destruction. What I didn't know then, while spending Sunday preparing for Monday's confrontation, was that Detective Lisa Morgan was running her own investigation, one that would expose Benjamin Walsh as the true architect behind everything. Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, Morgan sat alone in her office at Portland Police Headquarters, staring at the anonymous tip that had launched the entire case. From the beginning, something about it had bothered her. The details were too precise, too neatly packaged. It wasn't the kind of information a random witness would provide. It sounded like it came from someone deeply involved. Morgan had requested a trace on the tip's origin. The department's IT unit needed 3 days, but the results arrived Sunday morning. The anonymous email had been sent from a network address in downtown Portland. Morgan cross-referenced the IP address against local business registrations. Walsh and Associates attorneys at law, the tip had originated from inside Benjamin Walsh's own firm. Morgan leaned back slowly, unease tightening in her chest. Walsh had been involved from the start, Elliot Sullivan's attorney, the Sullivan family's trusted advisor for 2 decades. Why would an anonymous tip framing Elliot come from Walsh's office? She began digging into Walsh's background, pulling public records, court filings, and financial disclosures. What she found made her stomach turn. Walsh's late wife had accumulated more than $230,000 in medical bills before dying 4 years earlier. Insurance covered only part of it, leaving Walsh buried under debt. His financial records showed maxed-out credit cards, late payments, and liquidated assets. By early last year, bankruptcy had been a real possibility. Then Morgan found something else. 8 weeks after Dorothy Sullivan's death, Walsh had deposited $50,000 in cash into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The timing matched exactly with the payout from the Dorothy Memorial Trust. Morgan opened the trust documents she had collected earlier. Most of it was routine legal language, but she read every line carefully. On page 47, paragraph 12, subsection C, she found the key clause. In the event the primary trustee, Scott Brennan, becomes deceased or incapacitated, full control transfers to the backup trustee, Benjamin Robert Walsh. Everything snapped into focus. Walsh was the mastermind. He had helped Scott and Monica eliminate Dorothy. He structured the trust so Scott acted as a buffer. Then he sent the anonymous tip to frame Elliot. Once Elliot was convicted or killed, Walsh would arrange for Scott to meet with a fatal accident. With Elliot and Scott gone, Walsh would control the entire $750,000. Morgan's hands trembled as she reviewed Walsh's recent activity. He had purchased a one-way ticket to Rome departing Tuesday morning. He had rented a villa in Tuscany for 6 months. He was planning to vanish. She grabbed her phone and called Elliot Sullivan. No answer. She called again. Voicemail. Morgan drove to Elliot's home in Laurelhurst. The house was empty. She knocked next door where an elderly neighbor answered. "Oh, Elliot," the woman said. "He left early this morning. Said he had important business Monday. Looked very determined." "Did he say where?" Morgan asked. "No, dear. Just that he'd be back by evening." Morgan felt her stomach drop. Back in her car, she called Madison Sullivan. Straight to voicemail. She contacted Providence Hospital and asked for Madison's department. A nurse explained Madison had called in sick, staying home with her son after a family emergency. Morgan tried Walsh's office. His secretary said Walsh was unavailable, taking Sunday off to prepare for an important case Monday. Everything was converging on Monday. Morgan returned to the station and laid out every piece of evidence: pharmacy records showing foxglove purchases, insurance paperwork, trust structures. Once she knew where to look, Walsh's fingerprints were everywhere. She pulled Madison's address and drove there immediately. Madison answered the door, exhausted. Justin played quietly behind her. "Detective Morgan, is something wrong? Where is your father going tomorrow morning?" Madison hesitated. "He said he was meeting you and Mr. Walsh downtown." Morgan's heart sank. "Did he mention anywhere else?" Madison paused, thinking. "Walsh mentioned trust properties. A cabin, I think, in the Columbia River Gorge." Morgan asked for anything Walsh had sent. Madison searched Elliot's phone and forwarded a message containing precise GPS coordinates deep in the gorge where cell service was unreliable. Morgan understood Walsh's plan instantly. Elliot would confront Scott and Monica at a remote cabin. There would be violence. When authorities arrived, Elliot would be blamed. Or worse, Elliot wouldn't survive at all. Either way, Walsh would emerge as the grieving family friend and sole controller of the trust. Morgan called her sergeant and requested backup units at the gorge location at dawn. She tried Elliot's phone one last time. No answer. Monday morning at 7, I was driving east toward the Columbia River Gorge, watching sunrise light Mount Hood in gold. I knew none of what Morgan had uncovered. I believed Walsh was helping me. I believed justice was waiting. I was wrong about everything except one thing. By noon, the truth would come out one way or another. Monday morning, 7 o'clock. I drove east out of Portland, not knowing I was driving toward a trap designed to end my life. The landscape changed gradually as I followed Highway 84 along the Columbia River. Urban sprawl gave way to forest, then towering cliffs and waterfalls. Mount Hood loomed to the south, its peak brilliant white against the morning sky. I'd driven this route dozens of times with Dorothy weekend getaways, anniversary trips, simple drives to watch the fall colors. 42 years. We'd had 42 years together. High school sweethearts who'd somehow made it work through college career changes, the challenges of raising Madison, the joy of watching Justin grow. Dorothy had taught second grade for 3 decades, shaping hundreds of young lives. She'd grown roses that won county fair ribbons. She'd made our house a home filled with laughter and love. And Scott Brennan had taken that from her. Had deliberately, systematically harmed her health over 18 months to steal money he hadn't earned. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Today I'd get his confession. Today justice would finally come. The GPS led me off the highway onto progressively smaller roads. By 8:30, I was on a gravel path winding through dense forest. Walsh had been right. This was remote, private. The perfect place for secret meetings, the perfect place for worse things too. But I pushed that thought away. Detective Morgan had officers positioned nearby. Walsh had promised that. I was safe. At 9 o'clock, I spotted the cabin through the trees, a modest structure of weathered wood with a green metal roof. I parked about 100 yards away, tucked behind a stand of Douglas firs. Through my binoculars, I saw Scott's truck and a red Honda, Monica's car, according to the registration Walsh had found. They were here, both of them. I checked my phone. Full battery. Recording app ready. I took a deep breath and started walking, staying in the trees, approaching the cabin from the side where windows would give me a view inside. At 9:15, I pressed my back against the cabin's rough exterior wall. Voices drifted through the thin wood, clear enough to record if I held the phone against the logs. I activated the recording and listened. Kaku can't believe how easy it was. Monica's voice light and amused. 18 months of carefully calculated doses and everyone just accepted it as natural heart failure. Your pharmaceutical research really paid off. Scott's voice made my skin crawl. Perfect digitalis levels, just enough to mimic cardiac disease without raising suspicions. The supplements were genius, Monica continued. Hiding it in heart-healthy formulations. That old woman trusted you completely, playing the devoted son-in-law. Scott laughed, actually laughed. Measuring out each dose so carefully, making her tea, bringing her vitamins. Don't worry, Dorothy, I'm taking care of you. I pressed the phone harder against the wall, my other hand clenched into a fist. Keep talking, I thought. Confess everything. The insurance paperwork was trickier, Monica said. When you told me we had to threaten the daughter and grandson to make her sign, it worked, didn't it? Scott's voice held no remorse. Pathetic, really, but effective. Tell an old woman you'll harm her family and she'll sign anything. And the fake affair story, Monica asked. That was brilliant. Photo editing apps and fabricated text messages. Walsh suggested that detail make it look like Elliot discovered Dorothy cheating, give him a motive for harming her. The cops ate it up. My breath caught. Walsh. They'd just confirmed Walsh was involved. Speaking of Walsh, Scott continued. He's handling the final pieces now. Lured the old man up here so we can tie up loose ends. Once Elliot's out of the picture, Walsh arranges my accident, and he walks away with the entire trust fund. Leaving us with nothing, Monica's voice sharpened. Leaving us alive, Scott corrected. Walsh is thorough. He's already got exit plans Rome, I think. But he promised our cut gets wired to our accounts before he disappears. $250,000 each. If he actually follows through, he will. We're all in this together now. Too much evidence pointing at all three of us if anyone talks. My phone was still recording, capturing every word, but my mind was reeling. Walsh, my friend of 20 years, the man I'd trusted with my life. He'd orchestrated everything, the trap I was standing in right now. I needed to leave, needed to get this recording to real police, to Detective Morgan, to someone who could. My foot came down on a dry branch. The snap echoed through the forest silence like a gunshot. What was that? Monica's voice suddenly sharp. Outside, Scott's chair scraped. Someone's out there. I ran, or tried to. But 68-year-old knees don't respond the way they used to. I stumbled over roots, crashed through undergrowth, my phone clutched in one hand, while branches tore at my face and jacket. There's Scott's shout behind me. I made it maybe 20 yards before my knee gave out completely. I went down hard, phone flying from my grip, landing in the dirt somewhere ahead of me. When I looked up, Scott was standing at the corner of the cabin, one hand moving to his belt. I saw the weapon there, dark metal, brutally efficient looking. Our eyes met across the forest clearing. Well, Scott said, his voice calm in a way that made everything worse. Elliot Sullivan, right on time. Right on time. Scott's words confirmed my worst fear. This was a trap. Monica emerged from the cabin, also armed. Together they advanced, forcing me back against a massive Douglas fir. My phone was somewhere in the dirt behind me, still recording everything if I could just reach it. I recorded everything. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Your confessions. All of it. Monica moved fast, scanning the ground until she found my phone. She held it up, screen glowing. He was recording. Still is. Her finger hovered over the stop button, but he hasn't uploaded it anywhere. It's all right here. Perfect, Scott said, keeping his weapon trained on me. Makes this simpler. Here's what's going to happen, Elliot. You're going to disappear up here in these woods. Eventually, they'll find your remains. Tragic story, guilt-ridden widower who couldn't live with what he'd done to his wife. They'll find evidence you came here planning to end things. Detective Morgan knows I'm here. I tried. Scott laughed. No, she doesn't. Walsh made sure of that. He told you the police would be waiting, didn't he? There's no one coming, old man. Just us. The sound of tires on gravel froze us all. A black Mercedes pulled into the clearing. My heart leapt. Maybe it was Detective Morgan after all. Maybe Walsh had actually coordinated with police like he'd promised. Benjamin Walsh stepped out of the car. He was holding a weapon, and he was smiling. Elliot, he said warmly, as if we'd just met for coffee. Thank you for being so predictable. Ben. My voice cracked. What are you? Then Walsh did something that made my blood turn to ice. He raised his weapon and pointed it at Scott and Monica. Step away from him, Walsh ordered. Both of you, now. Scott's face went pale. Walsh, what are you doing? We had a deal. We had an arrangement. Walsh corrected his voice, calm and businesslike. You two were tools. Very useful tools, but ultimately disposable ones. Monica's hand shook on her weapon. You promised us money. I promised you what you needed to hear to make you cooperate. Walsh moved closer, his weapon never wavering. Did you really think I'd share $750,000 with you after all the work I put into this? The pieces clicked together in my horror-struck mind. Walsh had manipulated everyone. Scott and Monica thought they were partners. I'd thought Walsh was my ally. We'd all been pawns. Let me explain how this really works. Walsh continued, his tone almost professorial. I orchestrated everything from the beginning. The insurance policy, I helped Dorothy fill out the online application, guided her hand on the digital signature. She trusted me completely, never questioned why her family attorney was helping with insurance paperwork. He gestured toward Scott with his weapon. I recruited Scott first, discovered he had significant gambling debts, was desperate for money. I suggested a business opportunity, marry into a wealthy family, wait patiently, and when the time was right, help facilitate an inheritance. You manipulated me, Scott said, his voice hollow. I gave you direction, Walsh corrected. You were already a parasite, Scott. I just pointed you at a specific host. Then I brought in Monica. He turned to her. Brilliant pharmaceutical researcher drowning in student loans, research funding dried up. I offered her a solution: apply your expertise to a practical problem, get paid handsomely. Monica's face had gone white. You said it would look natural, that no one would ever know. And it did look natural. Walsh agreed. Beautiful work, really. 18 months of carefully calculated digitalis doses, perfectly mimicking heart failure. I was quite impressed. My hands clenched into fists. You helped them end Dorothy's life. Our friend. Dorothy was already deteriorating, Walsh said dismissively. Her heart was weak. We simply accelerated the inevitable. And I made sure the money went exactly where it needed to go, into a trust I controlled. The Dorothy Memorial Trust, I whispered, with Scott as primary trustee, me as backup. Walsh's smile was shark-like. Here's the genius part: when Scott inevitably ended up in prison for what he did or had some unfortunate accident, I'd assume full control. No questions asked. Clean inheritance. But I complicated things, I said. You did, Walsh admitted. Started asking questions, finding evidence, getting too close to the truth. So I adjusted the plan. I sent that anonymous tip to Detective Morgan, framing you for Dorothy's passing. Planted evidence of an affair to give you motive. It should have been simple. You'd be convicted, Scott would eventually be removed from the picture, and I'd walk away with everything. But I found Dorothy's journal, I said. Walsh's jaw tightened. Yes, that was unexpected. Brilliant woman, you're Dorothy. Too smart for her own good. But even that worked in my favor. I convinced you to come here, told you the police would be waiting, got you to walk straight into the trap. He raised his weapon higher, and I saw his finger move toward the trigger. Here's what happens now. Walsh said, his voice cold. Elliot, grief-stricken and guilty, confronted his co-conspirators at this remote cabin. There was a struggle. Shots were fired. Tragically, everyone perished. When the authorities arrive, they'll find 3 bodies and all the evidence of your conspiracy, the journal, the recordings, the trust documents. Case closed. You're going to eliminate all of us. Monica's voice was barely a whisper. I'll be devastated, of course, Walsh continued. My dear friend Elliot driven mad by guilt, and the 2 criminals who'd taken advantage of the Sullivan family. I'll attend the funerals, accept the condolences, and then quietly transfer the trust funds to my offshore accounts before retiring to my villa in Tuscany. You've been planning this for years, I said. Since my wife's medical bills destroyed me financially, yes. Walsh's mask finally slipped, showing raw bitterness beneath. 20 years I served your family, Elliot. 20 years of loyalty, of friendship, of watching you live in your comfortable house while I drowned in debt. When Dorothy's mother passed, and I saw that estate value, I realized I'd earned this. I deserved compensation for decades of devotion. You deserved nothing, I said. Dorothy trusted you. We all did. And that trust, Walsh said, raising his weapon to point directly at my chest, is what makes this possible. The forest had gone silent. No birds, no wind. Just 4 people in a clearing, 3 weapons, and the truth finally exposed. Walsh's finger tightened on the trigger, then cutting through the terrible silence, a voice I'd never been happier to hear. Drop your weapon, Mr. Walsh, drop it now! Detective Lisa Morgan stepped out of the forest shadows like an avenging angel, her service weapon aimed squarely at Walsh's chest. Drop it, she commanded again. Now! Walsh's face went through a rapid transformation, shock calculation, then resignation. His weapon clattered to the ground. Then the forest exploded with movement. Portland police tactical officers emerged from every direction behind trees from the far side of the cabin along the gravel road. 6, 8, 10 officers, all armed, all converging on the clearing. Scott tried to run. He made it 3 steps before 2 officers tackled him to the ground. Monica simply raised her hands. Weapon falling from her shaking grip, her pharmaceutical researcher's mind apparently calculating that resistance was futile. Walsh was thrown face first against his Mercedes, hands wrenched behind his back, metal handcuffs clicking into place. The man who'd orchestrated everything, who'd maintained perfect control for years, was now just another suspect being processed. Morgan approached me, holstering her weapon. Mr. Sullivan, are you hurt? No. When did you? We've been here since 7 this morning, she said, gesturing to the tactical team. Positioned in the tree line, we have parabolic microphones that picked up every word spoken in that cabin and out here. Every confession, every admission, all of it recorded. My legs nearly gave out. You heard everything. Yeah, Walsh orchestrating the insurance fraud. Scott and Monica admitting to harming your wife's health over 18 months. The threats against your daughter and grandson. Walsh's plan to eliminate all 3 of you and flee to Italy. Morgan's expression was grim. We have enough evidence to put all three of them away for life. Officers were searching the area. One found my phone in the dirt, held it up. Still recording, Detective. Good, Morgan said. That's more evidence. Between Mr. Sullivan's recording our surveillance equipment, Dorothy Sullivan's journal, and the financial records I gathered yesterday, this case is airtight. I watched as Walsh was hauled to his feet, his expensive suit now covered in dirt and pine needles. Our eyes met across the clearing. 20 years of friendship. 20 years of trust. All of it a lie, building toward this moment. Scott was shouting at the officers restraining him. Walsh planned everything. He recruited me. I can testify against him. Monica joined in immediately. I have documentation of all our communications. Walsh orchestrated the entire scheme. I'll cooperate fully with prosecutors. Rats abandoning a sinking ship, each trying to save themselves by betraying the others. It would have been satisfying if it weren't all so pathetic. Morgan led me toward Walsh. Mr. Sullivan wanted to speak with you, she told the officers holding him. I stood in front of Benjamin Walsh. This man who'd sat at my dinner table, who'd attended Dorothy's funeral, who'd called himself my friend while plotting to destroy my family. Why, I asked. The question seemed inadequate, but it was all I had. Walsh's mask had finally fallen away completely. His face showed nothing but cold calculation. 20 years, Elliot. 20 years watching you live comfortably while I drowned in debt. Your wife's estate, that insurance money, I earned it through decades of service. I deserved compensation. You deserved nothing, I said quietly. Dorothy trusted you. Madison trusted you. We welcomed you into our family. Family. Walsh laughed bitterly. I was never family. I was the help. The attorney you called when you needed something. Never mind that my wife died because I couldn't afford better treatment. Never mind that I lost everything while you complained about property taxes. So you took Dorothy from us. I took what I was owed. No remorse. No guilt. Just entitlement. I leaned closer, speaking so only he could hear. Justin is going to grow up knowing his grandmother sacrificed herself to protect him. He'll know his grandfather fought for justice, and he'll know that truth matters more than comfort, that standing up for what's right matters more than staying safe. Walsh's eyes flickered. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been shame. My grandson will never know you existed, I continued. You'll be erased from our family history. Just another criminal who tried to hurt us and failed. Get him out of here, Morgan ordered the officers. They dragged Walsh toward a waiting police vehicle. Scott and Monica were already secured in separate cars, still shouting accusations at each other, each trying to negotiate the best deal by providing the most damaging testimony. Morgan handed me my phone. The recording is intact. Combined with everything else, we have more than enough. Will they all be convicted? Without question. She looked toward the police vehicles. Walsh will likely receive the longest sentence. He was the architect. Scott and Monica might get reduced terms if they cooperate, but they're still looking at decades in prison. We walked back to Morgan's car. The forest clearing that had been a trap designed for my destruction was now a crime scene, officers documenting everything, evidence bags being filled, the machinery of justice grinding into motion. As we drove west toward Portland, the morning sun climbed higher over Mount Hood. I thought about Dorothy's final journal entry, "Get justice for what Scott has done." I'd done it. Justice was being served. Walsh, Scott, and Monica would all face consequences for what they'd done to Dorothy, for their conspiracy, for their betrayal. But as the gorge gave way to suburbs, then to the familiar streets of Portland, I felt the weight of it all settling onto my shoulders. Walsh had been my friend for 20 years. I'd trusted him with my family's legal affairs, with our futures, with our lives. That betrayal, that profound violation of trust, would stay with me forever. Justice had been achieved. But healing, that would take much longer. 18 months later, 18 months of depositions, legal meetings, and painful healing, I stood outside the Multnomah County Courthouse in downtown Portland. Those 18 months had been a blur of activity and emotion. Madison had filed for divorce within 2 weeks of Scott's arrest. The proceedings were mercifully swift. No one fights for assets when one spouse is facing life in prison for conspiracy and fraud. Scott's property maintenance business had collapsed immediately. His contracts canceled, his assets frozen pending restitution hearings. The defense attorneys had tried every angle. Walsh's lawyer claimed he'd been manipulated by Scott and Monica. Scott's lawyer insisted Walsh had orchestrated everything, and his client was just a victim. Monica's lawyer argued she'd been coerced through financial desperation. They'd pointed fingers at each other for months, each trying to shift blame, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, Dorothy's journal, the financial trail, the testimony of pharmacy staff, insurance investigators, medical experts. Detective Morgan had built an airtight case. Now finally we'd reached trial. I walked up the courthouse steps with Madison on one side and Justin on the other. My grandson was 14 now, taller than his mother, his face showing the first signs of the man he'd become. He'd grown up fast in these 18 months, learned things no teenager should have to know about betrayal and greed and the worst of human nature. But he'd also learned about courage, about standing up for truth, about family. The courtroom was packed. Media occupied the back rows. The case had drawn significant attention. Wealthy family betrayed by trusted attorney had made headlines for months. I saw Mrs. Henderson from Thompson's Pharmacy in the gallery and several of Dorothy's former teaching colleagues. They'd all come to bear witness. The charges were read: first-degree intentional homicide, conspiracy to commit, insurance fraud, attempted harm against Elliot Sullivan, forgery, elder abuse. The list went on. Each count felt like a weight being lifted. The prosecution called me to the witness stand on the second day. I sat there for 4 hours walking the jury through everything, meeting Dorothy in high school, 42 years of marriage, her kindness, her dedication to her students, her love for our family, then the final 18 months of her life. The symptoms we'd attributed to heart disease, Scott's devoted son-in-law act, the supplements and teas he'd brought her, the insurance paperwork we'd never seen, the trust fund established without our knowledge. I described finding Dorothy's journal hidden in To Kill a Mockingbird, described reading her words, understanding the impossible choice she'd made to protect Madison and Justin, described the crushing weight of knowing she'd faced her final months alone, terrified, making the hardest decision of her life. When I read Dorothy's final journal entry aloud, her words about protecting our family, seeking justice, but also living on and finding joy, the courtroom fell silent. I saw several jurors wiping their eyes. Even the judge looked affected. Walsh sat stone-faced at the defense table. Scott stared at his hands. Monica cried silently. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Expert witnesses testified about digitalis poisoning, about insurance fraud schemes, about trust fund manipulation. Detective Morgan walked the jury through her investigation, explaining how she'd uncovered Walsh's financial desperation and his elaborate plan. Scott and Monica had both tried to negotiate plea deals offering to testify against Walsh in exchange for reduced sentences. The prosecution had refused. They'd committed these acts together. They'd face justice together. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and delivered the verdicts: guilty. Guilty on all counts for Benjamin Walsh. Guilty on all counts for Scott Brennan. Guilty on all counts for Monica Garrett. Madison gripped my hand so tight I thought bones might break. Justin's face was pale but determined. Around us, Dorothy's former colleagues quietly celebrated. Walsh's face remained expressionless. Scott broke down, sobbing. Monica simply stared straight ahead, her pharmaceutical researcher's mind perhaps calculating the years she'd lost. 2 weeks later, I returned for the sentencing hearing. This was when victims could make impact statements, when we could tell the court how these crimes had affected our lives. I'd spent those 2 weeks preparing what to say. At first, I'd written pages of anger, about betrayal, about the friend who'd turned predator, about the son-in-law who'd slowly taken Dorothy from us while pretending to care. But the night before sentencing, I sat in Dorothy's office, now a place I visited regularly, no longer avoided, and read her journal again. Her final words: "Don't let grief destroy you. Live your life. Find joy again." Dorothy hadn't wanted me consumed by anger. She'd wanted truth. She'd wanted justice. But she'd also wanted our family to heal, to move forward, to honor her memory by living well. I realized then what I needed to say. Not rage, not hatred, but truth. The truth about who Dorothy had been: a teacher, a mother, a grandmother, a woman of grace and courage. The truth about what these 3 people had taken from us. The truth about the choice Dorothy had made and why it mattered. Tomorrow, standing before the judge, I would speak that truth. I would make sure everyone in that courtroom understood who Dorothy Sullivan had been and what her sacrifice had meant. Justice had been achieved with the guilty verdicts, but healing required something more. It required honoring Dorothy's memory by speaking her truth with clarity and love, not just anger. Tomorrow I would do exactly that. The sentencing hearing began at 9 o'clock on a gray November morning. Judge Elizabeth Monroe presided, her expression grave as she called the court to order. Walsh, Scott, and Monica sat at separate defense tables, each flanked by attorneys and marshals. Madison and Justin sat in the front row behind me. My daughter squeezed my hand once before I stood to approach the podium, where victims were invited to speak. I'd written nothing down. Dorothy's words were in my heart. Her truth was what mattered. Your Honor, my name is Elliot Sullivan. Dorothy Ann Sullivan was my wife for 42 years. My voice was steady. I'm here to tell you who she was and what these 3 people took from us. I turned slightly, making sure Walsh, Scott, and Monica could all see my face. Dorothy taught 2nd grade at Glencoe Elementary for 30 years. She shaped hundreds of young lives, taught them to read, to think, to be kind. Former students still stop me on the street to share memories of Mrs. Sullivan, how she made learning fun, how she saw potential in every child, how she never gave up on anyone. I saw one of Dorothy's teaching colleagues in the gallery nodding, wiping tears. She grew roses, spent hours in our garden nurturing each plant, learning what they needed to thrive. She won ribbons at the county fair, but more than that, she found joy in watching things grow, in creating beauty. I paused, gathering strength for what came next. These 3 people didn't just take Dorothy's life, they stole her final 18 months. Every morning she woke up feeling ill, she believed it was her failing heart. Every symptom, every moment of pain she thought was natural disease. But it wasn't. It was digitalis, carefully administered, designed to mimic cardiac failure. My voice hardened. Dorothy died slowly over more than a year, believing her body was betraying her. That's what they took, not just her years, but her peace, her trust in her own body, her ability to enjoy those final months with her family. I turned to face Walsh directly. Benjamin Walsh. I called you my friend for 20 years. I trusted you with my family's legal matters, our futures, our lives. But I wasn't your friend. I was your mark. My wife wasn't your friend, she was your victim. You orchestrated her suffering, profited from her passing, and then tried to frame me for a crime you'd committed. Walsh stared back, his face a mask. I shifted to Scott. Scott Brennan, you married my daughter. We welcomed you into our family. You called me Dad. And you spent 18 months administering harmful substances to Dorothy in our kitchen, in our home, measuring out doses while pretending to care. You held her hand while slowly taking her life. That betrayal is beyond comprehension. Scott's head dropped. He couldn't meet my eyes. Finally, I looked at Monica. Monica Garrett. You used your pharmaceutical expertise knowledge meant to heal to create the perfect means of harm. You calculated dosages advised on administration turned medicine into a weapon. You betrayed everything your profession stands for. Monica sat rigid, staring straight ahead. I turned back to Judge Monroe. These three people thought they were clever. They thought they'd get away with it. But Dorothy was smarter than all of them. She left us the truth in her journal. She documented what was happening to her. And even though she was terrified, even though they'd threatened to harm my daughter and grandson if she spoke up, she made sure we'd eventually know what they'd done. My voice caught. Dorothy sacrificed herself to protect Madison and Justin. She chose to go quietly rather than risk our family. That's who she was, a woman of extraordinary courage and love. I took a breath. Your Honor, I'm not here asking for vengeance. I'm here asking for justice. These three people conspired to end Dorothy's life for money. They terrorized her final months. They threatened a 12-year-old boy. They tried to frame me for their crimes. They deserve to spend the rest of their lives in prison. I returned to my seat. Madison's arm went around my shoulders. Justin gripped my hand. Judge Monroe reviewed the pre-sentencing reports, then addressed the defendants. Benjamin Walsh, Scott Brennan, Monica Garrett, you have been convicted of conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse, and first-degree intentional homicide. Your actions demonstrate calculated cruelty over an extended period. You preyed on trust, exploited family bonds, and showed no remorse. She looked at Walsh. Mr. Walsh, you were the architect of this conspiracy. You manipulated others and betrayed decades of trust. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 65 years on the remaining counts. And Walsh's face remained expressionless. Life without parole meant exactly that he would never leave prison. Scott Brennan, you administered the substances that ended Dorothy Sullivan's life. You betrayed your wife, terrorized your son, and showed sociopathic disregard for human life. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 45 years. Scott's shoulders shook. Too late for tears now. Monica Garrett, while you were not the primary architect, your expertise made this conspiracy possible. However, your cooperation with investigators and testimony against your co-conspirators warrants some consideration. I sentence you to 25 years to life in prison. The gavel struck. Marshals led all three away. Walsh walked with his head high. Scott stumbled. Monica looked back once at the gallery, her face pale. We left the courthouse into cold November rain. The media shouted questions, but Detective Morgan and her officers cleared a path to our car. As we drove away, I caught my reflection in the car window. An old man with lines carved deep by pain and battle. Gray hair, tired eyes, weathered face. But there was something else in those eyes now, peace. The people who'd taken Dorothy from us would never leave prison. Walsh would grow old behind bars, his elaborate plans reduced to nothing. Scott would spend decades reflecting on what he'd destroyed. Monica would serve her time knowing her brilliance had been wasted on cruelty. And our family had survived. Madison was rebuilding her life. Justin was growing into a strong, principled young man. We carried Dorothy's memory with us, not as a burden of grief, but as a legacy of love and courage. Justice had been served. Now finally we could begin to heal. 2 years after the sentencing, on a quiet Saturday morning in late May, I knelt beside my 16-year-old grandson in what everyone now called the Dorothy Memorial Garden. "Grandpa, this Julia Child rose needs more mulch," Justin said carefully, spreading organic matter around the base of the pale yellow bloom. At 16, he had grown into a thoughtful young man, tall like his father once was, but with Dorothy's gentle eyes and Madison's steady determination. "Your grandmother always said Julia Child roses were the most forgiving," I told him, watching his patient hands. "She'd be proud of how you're taking care of her garden." Over the past 2 years, the backyard had transformed completely. What was once Dorothy's quiet sanctuary had grown into a full memorial garden that brought our family together every week. Benches lined stone paths. Nearly 40 rose varieties bloomed in careful rows. Each plant represented a student Dorothy had taught, donated by former second graders who were now adults wanting to honor Mrs. Sullivan's memory. I was 70 now, my knees complaining more than they once had, but I wouldn't trade these Saturday mornings for anything. Gardening beside Justin, passing on what Dorothy had taught me about patience and growth, had become the most meaningful part of my week. "Mom's here," Justin said, glancing toward the house. Madison stepped onto the porch, followed by a man I'd come to respect deeply. Michael was an architect, quiet, thoughtful, nothing like Scott's shallow charm. He treated Madison with genuine kindness and had taken time to earn Justin's trust before ever discussing a future. "Dad, can we talk to you?" Madison asked. We gathered on the porch. Michael took her hand, the simple gesture revealing more sincerity than words ever could. "We'd like to get married here," Madison said softly, gesturing toward the garden. "In Mom's garden." "This summer, if that feels right to you." My throat tightened. "Your mother would have loved that." "I know this space is sacred," Michael added. "We wouldn't want to do anything that felt disrespectful." "It's not about that," I said. Dorothy believed gardens were for life, for beginnings. She'd be thrilled. Justin grinned. "So I have to wear a suit?" "Absolutely!" Madison laughed, ruffling his hair as he protested. A car pulled into the driveway. Detective Lisa Morgan stepped out, someone who had become a trusted friend since the trial. She visited every few months, not as an officer, but as someone who cared. "Hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "Never," I replied. Coffee. Over mugs at the kitchen table, Morgan gave us updates on the people whose conspiracy had nearly destroyed us. "Monica Garrett will be eligible for parole in 23 years, she said. "She's been teaching chemistry in prison." "At least she's doing something useful," Madison said quietly. "Scott Brennan is in a medium security facility," Morgan continued. "No parole. He's not adjusting well." Justin stiffened. He had been 12 when everything happened, old enough to understand betrayal, young enough for it to leave scars. "And Walsh?" I asked. Morgan's expression darkened. "He's in the infirmary. Heart disease." "The irony isn't lost on anyone." Madison squeezed my hand. "He has no visitors," Morgan added. "His family cut ties. Former clients want nothing to do with him." "I'm not asking out of compassion for Walsh," I said. "Dorothy taught me bitterness destroys the soul. I won't let him take more from us." After Morgan left, we returned to the garden. Justin tended roses. Madison and Michael talked about a small wedding cream and pale pink, Dorothy's favorites. I stopped at Dorothy's memorial stone beneath the Mr. Lincoln roses. Her name was engraved along with her years as a teacher and the words from her journal, "Remember me in the garden." "I do," I whispered, "every day." Justin joined me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Grandma would be happy, wouldn't she?" he asked. "She would," I said. "She wanted you strong, your mother's safe love to win." "Do you think about them?" he asked. "Walsh and Scott." Sometimes, I admitted, but not with anger. They chose darkness, we chose truth. Justin nodded. "Mom says the best revenge is living well." She's right. As the sun warmed the garden, I watched my family new love growing strength, roses in full bloom. We had been forged by loss and betrayal, but we hadn't just survived. We were thriving. Dorothy's legacy wasn't tragedy. It was resilience, love, hope. And in this garden, hope had taken root and flourished. That evening, as dusk faded into darkness and the first stars appeared over Portland, Justin and I sat on the porch while Madison prepared dinner inside. My grandson, only 16, but serious beyond his years, asked the question I had expected. "Grandpa," he said, "what did all of this teach you? Was finding the truth really worth the pain?" I leaned back in Dorothy's old rocking chair and chose my words carefully. Teaching had been my profession for 35 years. I understood how deeply words could shape a young mind. The first lesson, I said, is to trust your instincts. when something feels wrong. The morning I saw those messages on Scott's phone, every part of me knew something was off. I could have ignored it. If I had Walsh Scott and Monica would have gotten away with what they did to your grandmother. Justin frowned. But isn't it dangerous to always be suspicious? There's a difference between paranoia and awareness, I replied. Notice when things don't add up. Trust your instincts, then verify them with facts. Don't live in fear. Your grandmother believed in balance. As more stars appeared, I remembered Dorothy pointing out constellations from this same porch. The second lesson is that truth is always worth fighting for, no matter how much it hurts. Learning Dorothy was deliberately harmed shattered me. Discovering Walsh's betrayal felt like losing a brother, but living with lies would have destroyed us. I paused. Your grandmother stayed silent about Scott's threats because she believed she was protecting you and your mother. She chose honesty over comfort even when it cost her life. Justin hesitated. But don't people sometimes lie to protect the ones they love? Small, harmless lies happen, I said. But big truths should never be hidden. Silence meant to protect us nearly destroyed us. Honest communication might have saved her. That's the third lesson: a family built on truth can survive anything. I rested a hand on his shoulder. Your mother and I survived because we told each other the truth even when it hurt. We trusted each other with painful honesty. That's why we're here, I added, and why Walsh Scott and Monica are in prison. They built everything on deception. We built survival on truth. The kitchen light spilled onto the porch. I took a slow breath. Sometimes the people closest to us hide the darkest secrets, I said. I trusted Walsh for 20 years. He hugged me at Dorothy's funeral while knowing he helped cause her death. Justin lowered his voice. So how do you know who to trust? Watch actions, not words, I said. Walsh claimed he cared. His actions proved otherwise. Scott said he loved your mother. His actions showed he loved money more. Words can lie. Actions reveal truth. Or, Justin nodded. You know what carried me through 18 months of legal battles, I asked. Knowing that justice takes time, but it comes to those who persist. There were moments I wanted to quit, but your grandmother deserved justice. You deserved safety. Your mother deserved truth. Evil relies on good people giving up, I added. Never give up. The stars were bright now, the same ones Dorothy and I once watched together. I felt her presence everywhere. The most important lesson, I said softly, is that love outlasts everything. Betrayal, pain, even death. I still love Dorothy. That love pushed me to seek justice and protect you and your mother. Justin's eyes filled. What about them? They loved nothing but money, I answered. That's why they lost everything. Love nothing and you become nothing. Love deeply and you leave something eternal. I squeezed his hand. Yes, Justin. Finding the truth was worth every moment of pain. I would choose Dorothy alive always, I continued. But given what happened, I chose difficult truth over comfortable lies. And look where we are now together. Healing, preparing for your mother's wedding, planting roses. Justin whispered, when I grow up, I want to be like you. I shook my head gently. No, be better, kinder, braver. Learn from my mistakes. That's how families grow stronger. The screen door opened. Madison stood there, tears on her face. Thank you, Dad, she said. I'm only doing what your mother would do, I replied. Teachers teach even after they're gone. As we sat together in the quiet night, I understood Dorothy's true legacy wasn't the garden or the justice we fought for. It was this 3 generations choosing honesty, love, and courage. She gave her life to protect us. We survived to honor her, and we will live to prove that love always wins. Always. Sunday morning light filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Mary Church in downtown Portland. Dorothy had sung alto in the choir here for 20 years. I hadn't stepped inside since her funeral 3 years ago. Madison touched my arm. "You ready, Dad?" Justin stood beside us, tall and steady at 16. "We're with you, Grandpa." I nodded, and together we walked through the heavy wooden doors. The sanctuary smelled of incense and polished wood. My eyes went straight to the choir loft on the left of the altar, Dorothy's place, third row center. A small brass plaque was mounted there in memory of Dorothy Ann Sullivan, 1954-2023. Her voice lifted our hearts to heaven. Madison squeezed my hand. "Mr. Sullivan," Mrs. Garcia hurried over, her face warm. "Elliot, it's so good to see you. We've been praying for your family." "Thank you, Rosa. Dorothy would be proud of you," she whispered. "What you did, bringing them to justice, took courage." Others followed. Parish council members, families Dorothy had taught in Sunday school, choir friends. Each offered a quiet word, a hand on my shoulder, a reminder that we still belonged. We sat 3 rows back, not in our old pew. Justin sat between Madison and me. Father Patrick entered, his white vestments glowing in the morning sun. He had presided over Dorothy's funeral. I remembered almost nothing from that day except his steady voice. His homily was about justice and mercy. "We live in a world that mistakes mercy for weakness," he said, "and justice for vengeance. But the gospel calls us to both. Justice without mercy is cruelty. Mercy without justice is enabling." The words settled heavily in my chest. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," he continued. "It doesn't deny the harm. It means refusing to let hatred consume us. It means trusting that God's justice is greater than our anger." I thought of Dorothy's diaries. In her final months, she wrote about justice, not forgiveness. "Make them answer. Protect our family." Dorothy wasn't weak. She demanded accountability, and she was right. But she also lived forgiveness. I knew that from the grace she showed throughout her life. I wasn't there yet. I didn't know if I would ever forgive Walsh Scott and Monica. But the rage that once drove me had faded. What remained was grief and resolve. Father Patrick said, "God works through people, through investigators who uncover truth, through courts that deliver justice, through families who refuse to be destroyed by tragedy." I thought of Detective Morgan, the prosecutors, Madison testifying, Justin hearing truths no child should hear. God hadn't stopped Dorothy's death, but perhaps God worked through what followed. At communion, my hands trembled as Father Patrick placed the host in my palm. The body of Christ. Amen. Tears fell. "Dorothy, I did what you asked. I got justice. I don't yet know how to forgive. Teach me." I felt no answers, only peace. After Mass, Father Patrick invited me into his office. "How are you doing, Elliot?" he asked. "Better," I said. "I think I'm finding my way back to faith." "She had deep faith," he said. "She asked me to fight for justice," I said. "I did. But forgiveness is harder." "Forgiveness isn't about them," he said gently. "It frees you. It doesn't excuse evil. What happened wasn't God's will," he added. "It was human evil. But you chose justice and love." "She endured so Madison and Justin would be safe," I said. "Then she lived her faith," he replied. Before leaving, Madison showed me a notice in the parish bulletin. The Dorothy Sullivan Memorial Fund has provided musical instruments and lessons to 15 children this year. "She's still here," Madison whispered. Justin lit a candle. Madison lit one. I lit a third. Driving home, sunlight broke through the clouds. I still grieved. I still had questions. But I had something stronger now, faith. Not certainty, but trust. Trust that love outlasts death. That truth matters. That Dorothy's legacy would endure. Dad, Madison asked. "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah, I think I am." 3 simple truths guided us through the darkest time of our lives. If our story teaches you anything, if Dorothy's sacrifice means something, let it be this: trust your instincts when something feels wrong. The truth is always worth fighting for, no matter the cost. And a family built on honesty can survive anything. Looking back on this journey from discovery to justice to healing, I've learned that God often tests us through the people we trust most. My path from grieving widower to fighter for justice showed me that God works in mysterious ways even through tragedy. This has become one of those grandpa stories, the kind that carries hard lessons about faith, family, and doing what's right. When I found those messages on Scott's phone 3 years ago, I could have chosen comfortable ignorance. I could have told myself I was imagining things. I could have accepted easy lies. But something inside me, Dorothy's voice, or perhaps God's guidance, said, dig deeper, find the truth. And I listened. The hardest lesson from this true story is that evil often wears familiar faces. Trusted friends, beloved family members, respected professionals. They study us. They learn our weaknesses. They wait. Benjamin Walsh was our family lawyer for 20 years. I trusted him with Dorothy's estate, with Madison's future, with everything that mattered. He sat at our table. He laughed with us. He called me his friend. And he orchestrated my wife's murder for $750,000. Scott was married to my daughter for 12 years. He called me Dad. He played catch with Justin in our backyard. He fixed things around our home. And he poisoned Dorothy's tea for 18 months, watching her slowly fade, knowing exactly what he was doing. Monica Garrett was a respected pharmaceutical researcher, educated, professional, intelligent, and she weaponized that knowledge to murder a woman she had never met. But here is the truth that matters most. Justice comes to those who persevere, to those who refuse comfortable lies, to those who fight for truth no matter the cost. Dorothy deserved more than convenient falsehoods. She deserved justice. She deserved to be remembered not as an unfaithful wife, which she never was, but as a hero, a woman who chose death to protect her family. Her diary revealed everything. She knew she was being poisoned. She knew Scott, Monica, and Walsh were plotting. She could have told me. She could have gone to the police. She could have saved herself. But she feared they would harm Madison or Justin. So she endured 18 months of pain and fear, documenting everything, trusting that someday I would find the truth and fight for justice. That is courage. That is love. Madison deserved the truth about her husband. Justin deserved to grow up knowing that truth and integrity matter more than comfort and ignorance. These grandpa stories of betrayal, investigation, and justice teach us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right while terrified. When I stood in that cabin facing Scott's weapon, Monica's cold calculation, and Walsh's betrayal, I was afraid. 68 years old, unarmed, outmatched. But Dorothy faced death to protect her grandson. I could face danger to honor her sacrifice. Today, truth has strengthened our family. Madison and I survived because we told each other the truth. Justin is becoming an exceptional young man because he learned integrity matters more than comfort. Relationships built on lies eventually collapse. Walsh's 20-year friendship did. Our family was tested by truth and became stronger. Here is my advice. First, trust your instincts. That feeling in your gut exists for a reason. When I saw Dorothy's photo on Scott's phone, I listened. That choice saved my family. Second, never stop pursuing justice. It moves slowly. It exhausts you. But delayed justice is not denied justice. Dorothy endured 18 months of poisoning. I could endure 18 months of legal battles. Third, tell your family the truth, even painful truths. Madison didn't break when she learned the truth. She became stronger. She chose truth over comfort, and it freed her. Dorothy taught me that real love means protecting others even at the ultimate cost. By seeking justice, I honored her choice. By healing, I fulfilled her wish. Next spring, Madison will remarry in Dorothy's garden. Justin starts college studying criminal justice. I'm 70 now, planting roses and teaching lessons. We are not defined by what they did to us, but by how we responded. They took Dorothy's life. They couldn't take her legacy. The real victory isn't prison. It's that we survived. We healed. We love, because in the end, only one thing truly matters: love. And love, real sacrificial love, always wins. Looking back at this family story, I see a man who almost lost everything because I trusted too completely. Don't be like me. Don't assume that 20 years of friendship means someone can't betray you. Don't believe that family titles, son-in-law, trusted advisor, respected professional guarantee loyalty. God placed this family betrayal in my path, not to destroy me, but to teach me discernment. The Almighty showed me that evil doesn't announce itself. It wears familiar smiles and sits at your dinner table. Here's the hardest lesson I learned from this family story: verify what you trust. I loved Dorothy, but I never questioned why she handled all our finances. I trusted Walsh, but I never asked to see the insurance policy documents. I welcomed Scott into our home, but I never wondered why he was always offering Dorothy special teas. This family betrayal taught me that healthy relationships require both love and accountability. God gives us instincts for protection. Honor them. Ask questions. Review documents. Notice behavioral changes. It's not paranoia, it's wisdom. Don't wait until you find a devastating photo on someone's phone to start paying attention. Don't wait until your loved one is gone to demand transparency. Don't wait until evil has already won to start fighting back. If this family story resonates with you, if you've ever felt that sickening intuition that something's wrong, listen to it. The Lord speaks through that discomfort. Investigate with love, but without naivety. Protect your family with both faith and vigilance. The deepest family betrayal often comes from those closest to us. That's why we must balance trust with wisdom. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever ignored warning signs about someone you trusted? What made you finally pay attention? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might save someone else's family. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe and share this channel with others who need to hear Dorothy's truth. Together we can prevent more tragedies.